Moving on to the third round, we got a big segment here, but let's go over our rules first. 800 points for a great take, 400 for a good take, 200 for an okay take, and keeping it at a big fat goose egg for a bad take. Again, everything else doubling. Let's move to Russell Wilson, who Michael Lombardi, I believe he was on Bill Simmons' podcast, and he flat out said, hey, Russell's on a short leash this year. By the way, this given the fact that Russell's 5-year deal paying him in excess over $200 million hasn't even kicked in yet. He's still in the last year of his Seahawks deal. So from a contractual standpoint, this could be devastating for the Broncos if he doesn't progress the right direction. Obviously, Sean Payton is coming in. Hopefully, if you're a Broncos fan, if you're an NFL fan, a Russell Wilson fan, you hope he's able to get him back in the right direction to what he was in the Seattle days. So I'll ask you first, Dalton, in this final round, do you think Sean Payton this year in particular, 2023, gets Russell Wilson back on track? And do you think he becomes similar to what we remember him to be in Seattle?
No, I don't. And part of the reason I don't is because I think it's easy to forget that Russell Wilson was not a particularly effective quarterback his last year in Seattle either. We've gotten so used to seeing quarterbacks like Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers who, age beautifully into their late 30s. That doesn't happen with everybody. In fact, that happens with the minority of quarterbacks. And Russell Wilson's a guy who used to rely on his legs. He doesn't do that as much anymore. And I don't think that's on purpose, right? I think a lot of that's age. I think at the end of the day, Russell Wilson becomes the scapegoat for Peyton, where, the Broncos are probably going to be, to me, a below average team again this year. And Peyton can point at it and say, hey, I wasn't the one who made the decision to trade away Drew Lock, Noah Fant, Shelby Harris, and picks for this guy. And oh, by the way, the Broncos also gave up a pick to bring in Sean Payton. I think the Broncos have made a series of poor decisions. I think that those poor decisions are going to continue to catch up with them this season. Luckily for Sean Payton, he can basically push aside the blame for all of that.
Yeah, and you make a great point about Russell Wilson with his legs. He was actually vocal a couple of years ago about the fact that, he doesn't want to necessarily run as much as he used to in the past. He was very well known for his kind of his escapability, his sort of improv plays. I remember a play against the Cardinals in a Thursday night game years ago where he made an incredible play to Doug Baldwin. As he's gotten older, you're right. That's not really been his MO. And the question is, can he move back to that this year? Is he open to moving back to that this year? Only time will tell. Moving to you, Barry, do you think Sean Payton can fix Russell Wilson this season in 2023?
I don't think so at all. I'm going to go even further than what Dalton said. I think Russell Wilson is shot, and we've seen a little bit of that when he was in Seattle. And the one thing that a lot of people don't see in Russell Wilson's game that I've seen over the past maybe 4 or 5 seasons is that his IQ in the pocket is not that high. He used to rely on a lot of his athleticism and a lot of like Hail Mary plays and great wide receiver play to be able to bail him out of a lot of mistakes that he makes. When he went to Denver, he continued to make those mistakes, but guess what the difference is? The athleticism goes down. He's a little bit gun shy in the pocket now. He doesn't want to get hit as much, but the IQ is still the same. So this is why you're seeing, these alarming plays and these alarming games that he has, is because his IQ level has never gotten higher in regards to the quarterback position. Can Sean Payton be able to help him with the IQ part? Absolutely. But can he help him with the physicality part or the physical part that he's breaking down and he doesn't actually like to get hit? That's a big issue if he's starting to seize up and tense up in the pocket. You can't really fix the yips, and he has that. So no.
That's interesting, too, and you bring up the fact that he was obviously very reliant on athleticism. It's almost in a similar sense. The way you describe Russell Wilson, in your view, is almost how I would, going to a different sport, describe John Morant in the NBA, is that almost every play for John Morant has to be this, wow, unbelievable, what did he just do? And that's some of the reasons that he struggled. Russell Westbrook, he struggled with, injuries in that regard. So whether or not Russell's able to fix that is TBD, and whether or not Sean Payton can get them to that point is to be determined as well. Finishing with you, Adam, can Sean Payton fix Russell Wilson this year?
The Bronco fairy tale would say, yes, you bring Sean Payton in and he's going to correct this big quarterback buy that the Broncos did last season. That's why we brought Sean Payton in, because if anybody can fix somebody, it would be Sean Payton. It's not going to happen. Like, there's no way that Sean Payton's going to correct him this season, because that's your question. Maybe next year, maybe the season after, possibly when he gets some more time. But I also think that management brought in a guy like Sean Payton to do almost exactly what Dalton was talking about. Sean Payton can say, that's not my guy. And I think the management also even knows before bringing Sean Payton in that Russell Wilson wasn't correctable. And they want a Sean Payton to come in and get them out of the the chaotic mess that was also already created in Bronco country. So I think Sean Payton being brought in is a bigger long-term solution, obviously, for the Broncos. And Russell Wilson, if he can get in line, will be a bonus from it. But ultimately, they're looking at, with the amount of money that's invested, that, Sean Payton has the next 3-4 years to get this team on track to be a Super Bowl contending team, because why else would he be there? So I don't think it's going to happen this season. Regardless of the athleticism that he once showed, we don't know what goes on in the minds of these athletes and all the extra pressure that they have. And to get somebody back on track takes a lot of work and a lot of mental effort. And I just don't see that happening in one off season.
That's interesting. And listen, it's fair that, some of Russell's struggles, again, not all of them, because Russell, I think, to me, deserves the bulk of the blame for the Broncos' failures last season. But Nat Hackett had no experience in the NFL, so maybe that contributed. Whether or not, certainly there's no question. I don't think there's any question he's going to be better than he was last year, but that's not saying much, because he was arguably the worst quarterback in the league last year. Him and, of course, Mac Jones with the New England Patriots, but that's another conversation for another show. And listen, there were both coaching changes in that regard as well. So let's check the comments here. We got the Cowboys Cam fan in the comments here. Saying let's ride. It's on my Russell Wilson's famous catchphrase in Denver. So we got a Cam fan all over the place here on the 8 o'clock spot. Dylan Lima says Hackett was terrible. He was. I agree. Christopher Antaki, I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Dalton tells it like it is. Hey, that's what we want at the 8 o'clock spot. We want you to keep it real. We want you to give your honest and opinionated takes as much as possible. You just got to be respectful of the host. Okay, that means a lot to me. Respect, and listen, Adam did a great job in that regard. Speaking of Dalton, let's start with him because he went first to the segment. Dalton, I thought that was a great take. I think we need to talk about Russ's struggles in terms of, going back to his last year in Seattle wasn't quite as productive in terms of his loss of athleticism. I think that's a point that people often forget. It's a point, not to go back to Mac Jones, but it's a point I make about Mac Jones, that it's not just the fact that you have Matt Patricia calling plays last year, but the end of his rookie year, he was bad too. Russ, whether it was the finger issue, whatever the case may be, was not good in 2021. And that's why the Seahawks didn't get in the playoffs, and why they ultimately probably did, this past year. So great take, Dalton. Barry, great take as well. I think you mentioned the fact that, Russell his football IQ has been questionable at times. Again, I think there's some of the sort of Superman element, almost like a more athletic Andrew Luck. Like Andrew Luck also felt like he had to make every single play. Russ maybe so as well. And that's kind of come back to bite him as time has gone on in Denver. So I think it's a great take by you. I hate to do this to our new guest, but Adam, you're out, my man. I hate to tell you. My only issue wasn't even that bad of a take, but the issue was the fact that it felt like to a certain extent you might have been talking out of both sides of your mouth. Like, I don't think he can, but maybe he can. No. We need strong. And this shocks me for you coming from the Cam fan, because I know you guys are decisive. You guys are speak with conviction, and I just didn't feel that today. I was very, at least in this segment, not today, but just in this segment, Adam. I didn't feel it from you.
Hey, totally. You're totally right.
You're not getting points. You're too far behind for me to tack on enough points. You know what? I'll give you 50. I'll just give you 50 just to be nice, but it's still not enough.
I don't want pity points. You take that 50 points off. Give me back my 850. Okay.
I'll give you 850. Let's see. There we go. Okay, so there's Adam Bessie's 850, and your buddies with the Cam Fed podcast. We're not loving it. They were coming in here to support you. They said 10,000 points for Adam. Well, the problem is, guys, whether this is Anth or Alex commenting, the problem with that is you can only get 10,000 points in the final round. So just not able to. But maybe we can have you on. Maybe we can have the other guys, the Cam Fit Show, on in the future. And so there you go.